got a nickel for every time I said, I don't know, Cove, you tell me, I would have that $20 your dad was going to pay me to hang out with you. Which side is the bashful side? Is it the side that's not crying or like making weird comments and saying he was stupid for getting in the loft in his first place? Look, that last episode made me so mad. Taking it out on this game. Have to get 2 fucking beds for our apartment or a loft. Will he get in a loft with me now that we're dating? Is the question. Ari Master smells of marble. What's up, bitches? It's Noisy Face. I have enjoyed sharing each and every Tuesday with you as we count how many different ways we can make Cove cry, change his mind, and become confused. By Cove, my hair is very Bridgerton right now. I don't give a fuck, because I'm about to hit. And then summer ended, and then I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, guys. I really don't. Moths bounced against your window, attracted by the light of your room, a siren call in the slowly darkening sky. Just as the day was coming to an end, so too would summer. Liz would be moving back into the dorms before long. Luckily, Lee had been able to come stay for a short trip before her new journey began. She'd officially been accepted to her first choice college a few weeks ago. This was her last chance to see you all in person. You flicked through the plans for the next few months, realizing that you didn't even know when you'd next have an opportunity for everyone to be in the same place again. It was hard to think that you'd likely be seeing even less of your cousin going forward, but you were delighted that she was pursuing her dreams. Well, you were still with each other. Your family was going to have dinner together. As ever, the Holdens were tagging along too. Oh, Chinese, bitches! Oh, but Cove likes this other one. God damn it, Cove. I do everything for you! You hadn't really discovered the tropical restaurant until you were a bit older, but everyone's enthusiasm had resulted in so many visits that you more than made up for lost time. Liz and Lee were excited to squeeze in another trip before setting off again. Technically, you were getting ready to go out, though your mind was only half on the task. It was a pleasantly warm evening, the kind that epitomized the vacation feeling, and you were in no mood to spoil it by rushing around. While idly gazing at your room, you spotted a small cluster of unopened envelopes. That must have been left for you by a parent earlier. You headed over the table to flick through for anything of interest. As a child, any correspondence felt exciting due to its rarity. You recognize now that most of it was mundane. It's a lot of bills and like ads for dentists. That's what I get. But you were checking any mail you got more regularly of late. There was something you were expecting. You stopped at a crisp white envelope. The logo proudly proclaimed the sender, a school you'd apply to. Took a deep breath and read it. You opened it instantly. You hesitated. Yeah, and just rip open that bitch! You had to see what it was going to say, regardless of whether it was good or bad, as soon as you could. You pulled apart the glue flap on the front of the envelope and extracted the letter. Your eyes darted over the message, rushing past the pleasantries to get to the heart of the matter. The blood pounding in your ears deafened you to the world outside that was contained within these letters. Your heart skidded to a halt as you read your verdict. You'd been accepted. You were ecstatic, you were relieved, you could hardly believe it. I would probably be super excited. Bouncing on the balls of your feet, you pressed the letter to your chest as your excitement bubbled over. You had to tell your family you'd make the announcement at dinner. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be all fancy and like ting 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 ting. Going to college, whores. You tried your best to finish getting yourself ready for the dinner ahead. It was a strain. Your mind had only half been on the task before. Now, with the fresh news in your mind, it was a struggle to concentrate on anything else. You kept having to recall your thoughts away from the future and back to the present. Time was against you. Mom soon called from downstairs that it was time to go. You had to check the time, sure that you had 10 or at least 5 minutes left. You were wrong. You tore down the stairs, attempting to juggle your composure among the hurry and excitement. Your moms, who turned to greet you as you arrived, swapped silent, knowing looks. They couldn't possibly have figured out what had happened, or so you hoped. As your moms, they were pretty good at telling things without being told. You watched them, hunting for any further sign that they were on the case, but none came. For now, it didn't seem like they knew what was happening. Not exactly, at least. But things were definitely happening, and even if they didn't know for sure what you were cooking up, they could smell something in the air. They could smell la, 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 what the Rock is cooking! How could you not? Everyone piled into the car. While it was marketed as being suitable to hold 5 people, in practice it made for a very tight fit. Your moms, sitting in the front, were fine. You, Liz, and Lee were squished in the back, Lee in the middle, wedged between you and your sister. But Mom was an excellent timekeeper. Thanks to her efforts, she pulled up near the restaurant on time. The process of getting out of the car was slightly easier than squeezing in, with much less coordination required to release seatbelts than to secure them. You gave Lee a hand as she clambered out from the middle seat, then headed into the building as a group. A waiter greeted you as you entered. Mom let him know how many of you there would be in total, and he went to arrange the table that met to your needs. He returned promptly to guide you to your seats. You perched comfortably in your chair, your head held aloft as if buoyed by today's good fortune. Your family settled down around you, all cheerful and looking forward to the evening ahead. Your drinks order had just been taken when the Holdens came through the door. They were pointed in your direction, though with Mom waving an arm in the air it was hardly necessary. Cove and Mr. Holden came to join you at your table. As greetings were being exchanged, Cove took a seat opposite to you. It had been left empty by unspoken acknowledgement that you and Cove would be wanting to sit together. Mr. Holden sat behind him. "It's great to see you. Glad you could make it."
"Hello, everyone. You wouldn't believe how hungry I am, brah."
"You came to the right place, then." There was some laughter, though Liz groaned painfully, shaking her head at Mom's sense of humor. Growing up, she'd have complained, and Mom would have responded by making another comment. Liz had mellowed over the years, but she still made a show of despair at Mom's jokes. Her reaction to them had become a joke in its own right. Menus were soon passed around, and a temporary hush fell over the table as everyone read. It didn't last long. Punctured by comments about what people had eaten here before, the light chatter about what people were considering tonight. Once the waiter had disappeared with your orders, Cliff piped up.
Okay. So I've got some good news, brah. Kira's making a trip out here tomorrow.
Cove nodded, turning from his father to the rest of the table. "Yeah, we talked about it and figured this was a good time for everyone." "That's great." Everyone reacted positively to the news, though Ma looked wistful. "If only we'd known. Here we are, having a big meal without her. If we'd waited one day, she could have joined us." Mom patted Ma on the back, gently nudging her from the realm of possibilities of what-ifs, and back to the evening that was going so well. "Chin up. Lee and Liz will still be here tomorrow. We just have to throw another get-together and keep the fun train a-chugging along." Ma smiled warmly, taking Mom's hand in hers. Well, that's true. There's plenty to celebrate right now, but there will be more good news and good times on the horizon.
Right, bruh. And speaking of, that's not all we've got either.
Mr. Holden's eyes were alight as he sat up straight in his chair, face angled towards his son. He barely let a beat go by before nudging Cove with his elbow, pushing him to follow up on the announcement. He was the very picture of a proud papa. Cove shied from the limelight, ducking his head down and staring at his lap as he spoke. Well, it's just I've switched over to working full-time instead of only part-time. Plus, I've been looking at apartments. There's a few I can choose from. He flicked his gaze up at everyone around the table, a smile creeping over his face. I'll be pretty busy moving forward. Apartments? He was moving. Cove was going to be out of his dad's house. After 10 years, he wasn't going to be your neighbor anymore. However will he get in my window? Mr. Holden gripped one of Cove's shoulders and gave it a loving shake. His excitement couldn't be contained.
Incredible, bruh. Cove's actually gonna make it to adulthood. It's a miracle.
Mr. Holden leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling in mock wonder.
Wasn't convinced I'd be able to wear a bra all the way to this point. Thankfully, I lucked out. Got the best bra a dad could ever ask for.
Dad. Cove blinkered his vision with his hand on the side of his face, temporarily blocking his father from sight. Despite his genuine bashfulness, which left him unable to meet anyone's eyes after all the attention thrust his way, he was happy. I was really lucky, too. You're a good dad.
Aw, come here, brah.
Mr. Holden threw an arm around Cove's neck, pulling him into as close of a hug as the seating allowed. He rubbed his cheek on the top of his son's head while Cove chuckled, accepting the affection with good humor.
Oh, I'm totally gonna do the ding, 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 ding! I told you, that's how I roll. I gotta make an announcement, so I'm like, everyone's attention. Told you I was gonna do it. I'm a classy bitch. Yes.
You tapped your glass with a fork, something that you'd see done in movies when people wanted attention. It didn't quite make the same noise, possibly because your glass was a tumbler and not a champagne flute. But everyone looked in your direction anyway. I've got something to announce, too.
Course, brah.
Lay it on us. I got my acceptance letter today. I'll be going to college soon.
You're fantastic. Good job.
Ma roped you into a hug, her arms quicker than any lasso. You were thankful you were sat next to her. If not, you didn't doubt that she would have dived over the table to reach you in her excitement. Hey, let me in on the hug. Your moms pinchered you in a hug, leaving from their chairs to squeeze you in tandem. Liz beamed at you from across the table. Good job, French fries. Lee didn't hide her excitement, clapping her hands in open delight. That's amazing! You're gonna be amazing! Mr. Holden gave you a thumbs up.
Impressive. You're a good brah. The world's your oyster.
Cove grinned at you from across the table. That's amazing. Incredible. Did it. Congratulations, French fires.
Thanks.
No, seriously, this is a really, really big deal. You deserve it so much. You looked around at the faces of the company here. You'd been on this journey with everyone here for years, seen them falter and grow, and they had watched you go through the same. Cove was leaving his family home. Liz was heading back to college, while Lee was starting at hers. You were staying close, but it was clear you were all heading in different directions, different destinations, some near and some far, but it wouldn't be long until you were all going your own way. Your heart swelled with pride. It was bittersweet. It is bittersweet when that happens. You turned your head to the side, wistful, not wanting to spoil the evening with your troubles. You were glad that everyone was succeeding, but the idea of splitting up gave you a twinge of regret. These people had been key pillars in your life. Days without them, no matter how bright and sunny, felt a little empty, like a theme park after closing time. Focused your mind on the sweet side, filled your mind with the bitter part. I would probably try to focus on the sweet side. New adventures were still ahead, and you could encourage that optimism. Cove brought some attention to himself with a clearing of his throat and a small interjection. I'm gonna stretch my legs while we're waiting for the food and everything.
Sure thing, brah.
With a tiny smile, he nodded at his dad, but the lightness of his expression faded when he moved to face you. Wanna come? He was attempting to be subtle, but there was very obviously something on his mind. Something he wanted to talk to you about alone. Are you going to ask me to move in after all your fickle business, Cole? Just called you Cole. That's how fickle I am with you, god damn it. I've had enough of your tootly toot toot toot. Oh, let's go to the Redwood Forest, even though we don't have time to run around. Oh, let's go dancing so I can run away from you and ask you to dance at a super fancy party later. Oh, let me be disappointed about ice cream and eat all your ice cream. You watched him with concern as you rose from your seat. Yeah, I'll go. Take care. With those parting words, the two of you walked about the place. He was trying to get as far away from everyone else as possible without actually exiting the building. What did you need to say? He had not admitted that this But messing up sentences. Yeah. Yeah. He hadn't admitted that that was what this was about, but he didn't need to. Cove started pulling on the hem of his shirt. He turned his head back to face you, but it was an awkward moment. Well, I wanted to talk to you one-on-one about all this. My work, moving. I mean, coming before, but now it's pretty much here. Yeah, it's exciting. Cove stopped, picking at his shirt, and he seemed to respond well to that response. He was relieved that you weren't upset about it. I'm glad you think so. But then he looked down and his brows furrowed. He saw his hand shift away from his clothes to instead rub at his arm. Are you looking forward to it? I am. Well, trying to be. He ducked his head further and you saw his face start to redden. It's scary. I don't want things to end. Come on, you don't need to worry. You're going to do great things. So you're saying you're going to dress up as the future for Halloween. That doesn't make any sense. That's a dumb joke. Ugh. I'm gonna say, come on, you don't need to worry. It may be scary now, but it'll be worth it. Sure hope so. Cove then turned his head away and wrapped his arms around himself. Felt a sudden chill that definitely wasn't caused by the air conditioner. I was just thinking. Are we really gonna stay a couple?
I don't know, Cove. You tell me. You seem to orchestrate that with your whims and whatnot.
His words came out hesitantly. He didn't want to ask this. He didn't want to know. I'm not just talking about today, but forever. Always. Even if things change later. Right now, do you feel like we can make it? Or do you think we can't last? That one day we'll have to move on.
That's a weighty fucking question, okay? Like, we're 18 and you're weird. You were as worried as he was. You got mad at him for this. You kept calm. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna not worry. That's a legitimate question.
What if you grew apart? What if one day he just didn't want to keep up with his old neighbor? What if you both changed?
Why did you bring this up now? You begin to tear up. I don't know, Cove. I don't know anything. You should already know the answer to that. You glared furiously at him. Well, he doesn't know the answer because he's asking.
You blinked as you felt something fall down your cheek, and Cove bit his lip. I didn't want to make you feel bad by bringing this up. I don't know what I wanted. But I felt I had to say something about this. If not now, then when? Out of the corner of his eye, you noticed a nearby table of people were staring. Cove's outburst had attracted attention. The eyes on you just made things worse. You felt overwhelmed, smothered by everything going on. You couldn't handle this. I need some air. Alone. Cove seemed pained, but he didn't protest when you brushed past him and left the restaurant. There was nowhere else to go but out. You stepped onto the sidewalk. A couple cars drove by the main street and the breeze hit your face. You took a few deep breaths now that the conversation was no longer suffocating you. You weren't quite sure what to do next. Gaining space had been the only plan. You patted your sides on reflex and pulled out the spare key from your mom's car. Walking fast, you went down the sidewalk to the part of the street where your parents had parked. You remembered going past a particular building on the way into the restaurant and managed to backtrack your way to the car without incident. You unlocked the car with a shaky push of the button. The headlights flashed. Pulled open one of the back doors and tucked yourself inside. You shut the door and the car beeped when you locked it again. While putting the keys away, you switched it out for your phone. There were concerned messages from your family. Are you okay? Something happening? Another text came in from your sister at that moment. You didn't respond to any of it and held down the power button. You looked back at your phone and stared at the blank screen. You could see part of your face reflecting back at you. Then you dropped your phone on the seat.
If I am this upset, I would probably cry. I'm just saying.
Your cheeks burned and you blinked slowly. You felt warm tears drip down your cheeks. Your breath hitched. Suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly as this had been building for a while, you started to cry. Then you tried to relax, empty your mind of worry, distract yourself. I usually try to work through emotions. You did your best to reflect on the situation and sort yourself out. A few moments passed by. You breathed in the quiet. The car started to get warm, but you didn't feel like turning it on to get the AC going or rolling down the windows. You wanted to text Cove. You wanted to text your family. You wanted Cove to come see you. Ari Master's gonna nod that that's the option that I would pick. You picked up your phone from the cushion and pushed the power button. It took a minute to boot up. There were plenty of additional messages. You planned on checking out your family's text later and tapped onto Cove's number first. You knew that you didn't actually want to be away from Cove. Sure, you'd needed some space. That could only last so long before you wanted him with you once more. Hey, I need you. Could you come to my mom's car? Cove texted back quickly, almost instantly. Okay. That was a relief. I'm sitting in the car by myself, and all you gotta do is text me the word okay? God, he's such a boy! That was a relief. Another message followed shortly after. That's what I'm talking. This is the problem! What? When you looked up from your phone and out the window, nothing stood out as obviously Cove-shaped. He wasn't easy to miss. You were about ready to text him back when you saw a shock of green out of the corner of your eye. Cove stood up. He'd been sitting on the pavement, leaning against the car door. He straightened out and smiled carefully. He pointed towards the closest car door and raised his shoulders in a clear question. He wanted to know if it was okay to hop in. You nodded, not seeing the point of keeping him awkwardly outside. Cove walked around to the other side of the car, opposite of you. He put his hand on the door handle and pulled. You tried to open the door, and obviously wasn't expecting it to be locked. He pressed the unlock button and he smiled after he heard the click. He sat down and then quietly closed the door behind him. For a moment, he faced straight ahead. His hands flinched when he got halfway through putting on his seatbelt, before he realized that he wasn't actually going anywhere. He dropped his arms and the seatbelt slithered back up into the side of the car. Neither of you seemed to know what to say. Eventually, Cove turned to face you. He seemed serious. Everyone cared when you left the restaurant. They all wanted to be here, but I promised that I'd look out for you. He gripped the side of his cushion and regarded his lap. Like Liz. She told me I'd better not be making things worse, or I'd never be considered a trusted adult for the rest of my life. But yeah, everyone's here for you. Even if it's just me in the car. I get it. Cove stared deep into your eyes. He noticed you had some redness around them. You can do it. We can do it, French fryers. Make a good life for ourselves. No matter how hard it seems, we can do it. He gripped your shoulders, and he knew that he was doing his best to project confidence. He wasn't sure about himself, but he was trying for your sake. Yeah, you're right, thank you, Cove. I'm not so sure. I know what you're doing, and you don't have to. You nodded. Well, I'm not just going to be fully accepting, because there's a lot of shit to unpack here. I am not so sure. I would probably do this one. We're going to go there. Cove ducked his head. He felt a bit of his hair. But I think I do. I'm not hiding it. I really do think that you're going to make it. There's no way that someone like you wouldn't. You could feel his belief in you. He might have been uncertain about his own future, but it was clear that he saw something bright in yours. Cove then studied you from over his shoulder with a soft expression. He twisted his body to the side and held up his open arms. You raised your eyebrows. I would probably hug him. Fold yourself towards the middle seat so that you could reach him properly. You had to climb over one of his legs that he was resting across the seats. He turned so that it was completely sideways in the seat, back pressed to the car, and made space in front of him for you. You settled down against him and leaned against his chest. You wiggled in to fit comfortably. You wrapped both of his arms around you and nestled one of his cheeks on the top of your head. It was very snug. He kissed your forehead gently and you relaxed into him. You breathed them in. The scent was uniquely Cove, oceany and citrusy. He made you feel secure and precious. That's like the scent of every boy body wash ever. It's like oceany and citrusy, or it's like very perfumey. like musky. Despite the cramped back seat of the car, Cove was very comfortable, and his reassurance was nice. He was right here and he cared. It was hard to dwell on future troubles when he was doing his best to comfort you. Hey, French fryers? His voice was calming, and his eyes were full of fondness for you. His mouth quirked into a crooked smile. I have a great plan. We can just stop thinking about the future and all of that. You had no idea what he meant. He didn't acknowledge your confusion and continued. I'll still get that little apartment and you can move in too. Fucking called it! I had to run off to my car and cry, but I called it. I'll stay as close to here as possible and I'll get a new job on the shopping street. I'll sell pretzels. He lightly stroked your head as he spoke. On the word pretzel, he traced a loop-de-loop shape that you had a suspicion was supposed to be a pretzel. You can probably find a job there too. You can sell pretzels. We'll be business partners. That is adorable. I want to be mad at you right now. I started this episode mad at your ass. Don't say cute things. I'm mad at you. And then we'll do that forever. We never have to worry about what to do or where to go or letting our lives change ever again. What do you think? You laughed through tears, you smiled, you shook your head, you lightly swatted Cove's arm. I would do that. Don't be cute, I'm mad at you! You smacked him, and he snorted. Perfect, you're a genius, Cove. That plan sucks. There's no way we're doing that. It is bad, and I actually like the sound of the plan. You stayed quiet. I don't like any of these options. I'm gonna say it's perfect, you're a genius, but I'm gonna say it condescendingly. And don't you question me, game. Cove chuckled, appearing entirely too innocent. I'm pleased you agree. I can't wait. Pretzels. You. What kind of pretzels? We'll have pretzels for our meals too. We better research the apartment we'll get. I'd also like to perform on the shopping street. I mean, we did talk about that with Derek. Oh man, I kind of want to say that we'll eat pretzels. I'm gonna go with that. As a start to our day as pretzel merchants, should we get in the mood by eating pretzels? Yep. Yar, what you eat? We'll make mini pretzels that we can stick in a bowl, and it'll be just like cereal. That's actually a pretty damn good idea, Cove. And then you could have with like cheese. I'm on to you. It was fun to not be so serious for a bit. The Cove's tone changed. It always changes, Cove. It's never one straight with you. French fryers. He started to speak, but drifted off. All the sounds of the world outside were muffled and distant. In that space, in that moment, it really felt as though there was no one except you and Cove. Cove ran his hand down and up your arm. It felt reassuring. Finally, he was able to continue his thought. No matter what, you can count on me whenever you need something. Or even if you just want to. We're becoming more independent, but you're never actually alone in the world. Thank you, you nodded. Sounds like I'll never be rid of you then, huh? Yeah, I'm not gonna kiss you yet. You done piss me off, Cove. That's all I'm saying. You considered the thought of living with Cove in his tiny apartment in the pretzel plan, or just in general. I'd be fine living with you. We better live together sometime, just not like that. Yeah, well, I said at the beginning, like, is he gonna ask me to move in with him? So, like, sure. I'm on board with the plan, I guess. Really? I'd like that too.
Cove beamed. You felt much better than you did 5 minutes ago. He was your ray of sunshine. Cove turned red but met your eyes. He was happy, even though his blush took over his face.
I guess we should be able to head back without carrying the weight of all this. That's important after all.
He paused with a smirk. You anticipated a joke, or at least an attempt at one.
Our hands will finally be free for other things, like eating our meals, so that'll be nice.
Thanks, yeah, it'll really be nice. That's true, our hands will be free to do other things, ... Oh, you nodded. Did I know you were such an optimist? I'm going middle. Will flushed inside with exasperation at the insinuation. You were surprised he really hadn't seen it coming. Yeah, seriously, Cove. You laughed. Yes, I'm serious. You started to run your fingers down his chest. Well, it's between the middle and the bottom. He's probably gonna freak out if I touch him. I'm doing it. You were eager, but Cove put his own hands up to his face, trying to hide. You had brought out his bashful side.
Oh my god, well, we probably shouldn't. This is your mom's car.
You pouted, and that made him frown in turn. Suddenly, he leaned into you, and he kissed you. You let out a surprised gasp, though you were glad. You let the kiss break just long enough for you to flip over into a more front-facing position to make reaching him easier. Oh no, is it gonna get cray-cray in the car? Then you kissed him back deeply, using your hands as much as possible. You slid one up to his neck to cradle his head. Felt his fingers trace down your back, and you pressed closer, continued kissing. After a couple minutes, he broke away. His face was red, and he scratched his ears sheepishly.
Shouldn't go at it all too much in here. Plus,
you observed his legs. His left leg was sprawled across the back seat, while his right was oddly folded in the space between the seats. This back was not made for a tall guy's legs.
I don't exactly fit and everything, so...
The flusterment coming off him made you laugh. You gave him a break and pulled away fully. He smiled, pleased at how everything turned out. With that, you happily stepped out into the world again. You made sure to grab your phone and keys on the way out. Cove's stomach grumbled after you locked your mom's car back up.
Looks like we're heading back just in time.
Yeah. It was a short walk back to the restaurant. It felt like you blinked, and then suddenly you were retaking your place at the table. Felt nervous. You didn't want to explain what happened yet. Liz took in your appearance with a grateful expression. To your surprise, you seemed alright with letting your disappearing act go.
Thank goodness you're back, French fires. You have to back me up here.
A hair elastic is called a hair elastic. No, it's called a scrunchie. Or a chongo, if you're Spanish, Liz.
It's a hair tie.
Or that too. Even just coming into the argument, you could tell they were just joking around. Neither Liz nor Lee were taking this semantic discussion seriously. It's a hair elastic. Lee is right. They're called hair ties. It's a scrunchie. What about a rubber band? You can use both terms. Well, I did say it was a scrunchie or a chongo, so that's where we're gonna go.
Schrader.
Your mom's laughed, and you felt your discomfort subside a bit. Ma caught your eye. Are you all right, French fires? You nodded. Throughout the next few minutes, you found yourself drawn in different conversations, each one where everyone checked on you in their own way. The warmth of everyone's love comforted you. You decided to tuck this treasured feeling close to your heart. You wanted to remember it for a long, long time.
Night fell soon after everyone finished their meals, and before you knew it, you were standing in the parking lot saying your goodbyes, packing up cars to go home. After the last of chores were done, your family spent some more time together. The rest of the night felt like it was going by in a blink of an eye, and somewhere the time came to retire to your room to sleep. You pulled your covers up under your chin and settled down for the night, getting warm and cozy. As your head sank into the pillow and you closed your eyes, your mind drifted back to everything that had happened that day. You could see it all now, behind your eyelids, as though you were experiencing it all over again. And then the image of Cove popped into your head and you smiled softly to yourself. I decided to send him a text, texted him to come over, wanted to sneak out to his room. You were feeling tired. You're like, I don't know what I want to do. If Cove could do it, then you shouldn't see why you shouldn't be allowed to. You made up your mind. As quietly as you could manage, you put on your shoes and slipped out of your room, closing the door behind you softly. Heading slowly down, you took care not to make the floor creak, especially the boards right by the bathroom. Those definitely squeaked. Why am I doing that? Why am I not going out the window? Stillness of the night made even the slightest sound seem so much louder in your ears, and you were very aware of your mom sleeping nearby. Upon reaching the bottom, you tiptoed towards the front door. Slipping into the crisp night air, you shut the door and took a reveling breath. Excitement rising, you dashed across the street to Cove's house. The road, too, was surreal at this hour, familiar and yet strange. It might have been eerie at another time, but with how eager you were, you hardly cared. You attempted to find your way from the normal footpath to the side of the condo, but the limited light was making it difficult. You knew for sure which window was Cove's. Well, that's good, because I don't want to climb into Mr. Holden's bedroom. Lucky for you, it was on the first floor. Unlike Cove, you wouldn't have to do any building scaling. All you needed to do now was make sure it safely over the fence. All you needed to do now was make it safely over the fence and past the bushes without being caught or injured. Sneaking closer, you glanced over the hedges towards Cove's bedroom window, finding it cracked open. Perfect. You wouldn't have to knock and worry about him not answering. Well, he might not be in there, so you might have to worry about that. Hoisting yourself up with ease, you cleared the fence and avoided the shrubs, then darted over to the window. You buzzed with nervous excitement as you approached it in the dark, having successfully made it all the way here unseen. Lifting the window up so it was fully open, push yourself halfway through, your legs dangling into the underbrush. It was a little awkward, as a small shelf was right in the way. You had to take care not to knock over a couple of plants, but you made it through with minimal noise. See? He's not in there! What did I just say? Once safely inside, you dusted yourself off and turned back to close the window gently. With only the soft glow of moonlight on Cove's fish tank there to see the way. You gave a small wave to the special fish you got to name Shiloh. Ironically, it paid as much attention to you as Shiloh did when you met him on the street. I don't know. That would be really funny if that said next. Then, straining your eyes through the dark, crept towards Cove's bed, barely making out the sleeping figure beneath the covers. Oh, he is there! He is there! Or Mr. Holden's gonna pop up and be like, surprise! French fryers! By the sounds of his soft breathing, you could tell that he hadn't heard you come in. A small smile tugged at your lips. I'm not gonna startle him. That's bad. Poked him until he woke up. You nudged him gently. You whispered his name. You sat down on top of him. You left him to sleep and sat beside him. Well, I came all the way here, so I'm going to nudge him gently. After a couple of nudges, he sleepily blinked an eye and mumbled something incoherent beneath his breath. Cove? I wanted to come over. That all right? He let out a yawn and rolled towards you, waking up just enough to understand the question but not the full context. A faint smile appeared on his face. What? Yeah, I want you here too. He reached for you, his arms wrapping around your neck as he pulled you towards him. When your foreheads touched, he gave a satisfied sigh. Then, as if totally unaware what he was doing, he started dozing off again. You snickered quietly to yourself as you sat there. He could figure it out on his own. And after a few seconds, he did. Wait. French fries? Yes. Do you need something? He shuffled under the covers and sat up to stare at you in alarm. Why are you in my room? What happened? A smile slipped onto your face as he finally registered your presence for real. Said nothing. I didn't want to be alone. I was bored. I hug him or I kiss him. Well, I'm gonna kiss this bish. That's where we're going. Clutching the front of his shirt, you gently pulled him towards you and met his lips with your own. He kissed you back softly, before pulling back too quickly, looking a little flustered. Was that the whole reason? I don't know, Cove. You tell me. Was that the whole reason? He hesitated before whispering the next part embarrassedly. To kiss me? That's not the only reason, no. Yes, is that a bad reason? Is it a bad reason? No, it's not. Should have known you'd do this one of these days. It's only fair. You let out a breath, feeling relieved that he didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, it felt kind of good. You thought maybe this enthusiasm was why Cove did it so often. He pushed himself up fully, swinging his legs over the side of his bed and leaving a spot for you beside him. His hands shook where he held them in his lap. He was nervous. Oh no! Oh no! You sat down beside him happily, waiting for him to speak first. You can stay as long as you want. Really? Yeah, really. I'll go home soon. I don't have to stay. How long do you want me to stay? Can I stay the whole night? 'Tis a pertinent question. There is no loft in your room. If you lay on the floor... He smiled, feeling relieved that he had agreed, and he grinned back. You could always count on him. I've secretly slept over in your room before. It's fair if you get to do it too. Oh yeah! I forgot about that! Ah, don't happen though! You snickered, feeling pleased with your decision to do this. Well, it looks like you might be getting the floor again. Okay, no, don't get off, no, that is not up for discussion. Here we go again. You rolled your eyes and let out a soft laugh, which Cove returned as he rubbed the back of his neck. No, seriously, you can have the bed. I want to share. Can we try to stay? I'll take the floor. I insist. I wouldn't mind if you took the bed, ... I appreciate you taking the floor, Cove. It's gonna be this one, because again, I just said if you take the floor. His eyebrows dipped. He was growing visibly nervous. It was to be expected. But after what happened last time, you'd been waiting for another chance. You hoped he felt the same, and it seemed he did. Yeah, this time we can share. You'll really stay? You won't leave to be on the floor? We're gonna find out. He nodded. Holding back your delight, you tried not to grin at the sudden resolve. Oh, yeah, we're gonna share the bed. You could hear the tremble in Cove's voice as he held his hands together to keep them from shaking. He let out a breath and shook his hands in front of him, mentally preparing himself.
It's gonna be all right.
His mouth set into a grim line, and he balled his hands into fists at his side, determined. It's not that serious. You felt pretty nervous about it yourself. You were glad he was making the effort. I am glad he is making the effort. It was an important step in your relationship, and he seemed to understand that. It only took a couple of moments longer before he turned to you, attempting a weak smile.
Ready?
I'm definitely ready. Let's get cozy. You took another deep breath and you slipped under the covers, making room for him to get in after you. Laying as straight as a steel rod, Cove tensed up beside you. So still he was barely breathing at all. You rested on your side and faced him, your elbows pinched in the middle as you watched him. He looked back at you deeply. Do you need more time? I can leave until you're more set up here.
No, please don't go. I just want you to stay with me.
Ever so slowly, he began to relax, fingers tentatively brushing up and down your arm. His eyes shut, lashes fanning out over the top of his cheeks, and you still half expected him to run away like last time. But he didn't. He stayed right where he was.
Well, you don't have to worry about me. Doing stuff like this isn't a problem. It's a process.
You nodded in understanding, even though he couldn't see it, giving him a little time for his nerves to settle. After fluffing up your pillow and getting comfy yourself, you stayed quiet. Eventually, his shoulders became less rigid. With his eyes open, he smiled and turned his head towards you.
Thank you for waiting again. As always.
He laughed shyly, his soft eyes meeting yours through the dim light.
Are you okay?
Yes, I am now that you are. I will always wait for you, Cove. I'll never let go, Jack. It took you long enough, but it's fine now. I shall nod in your general direction, sir. He let out a deep breath, relief written on his face. He shifted closer, an inch at a time. You nuzzled his chin against the top of your head, wrapping his arms around your sides. Let him hold you. You stayed like that. You grasped his shirt. You wrapped your arms around him. I would probably like snuggle, be snuggly snuggle. Your fingers gently brushed up and down his back as you held him close. The room grew quiet around you. The only sounds to be heard were the faraway crash of the ocean waves and your breath mingling in the small space between you. Cove's heart was pounding, the thump of it rumbling through you as he spoke again softly.
No, I'm not scared of you, right? It's just so many other things that scare me. I'm afraid of what-if hypotheticals that aren't actually real, but I can think about anyway. Of nebulous concepts of what things mean that I can barely explain even to myself.
Oh man, I feel that. Like I've got anxiety like a mother, let me tell you.
Scared of my own feelings and how much I feel them. And I'm afraid. Because tomorrow things will be different between us. But I'll be alone again.
He held onto you tighter, his breath stuttering ever so slightly.
It's normal right now to see you during the day and part ways at night. Except for special occasions.
A little laugh escaped him before his tone became serious once more.
Easier to stay where I am than it is to make myself move. Not take a risk. And to not know what I might be missing. But...
He hesitated. You reached up to brush a few strands of hair from his face gently, his eyes slowly fixed on yours.
When did doing the easy thing get so hard? It comes to you. I don't know how to stay still. I want to keep taking steps forward.
It's so cute.
Honestly,
when I see your face or even imagine it. I want to start sprinting. Oh, Gabe! How you gonna roller coaster my emotions like that, Gabe? But when I try, I hit a wall. Just, I physically can't do it on my side of my mind. There's something blocking me. Then on the other side, I absolutely can't stop myself from doing it. It never ends well. I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing. Why do I do it every time? I am annoyed with the way I am, so I have no idea how to stand it. I'm sorry I act so split when it comes to romantic things. And I want you to think you're rushing me when I know I'm giving mixed signals. I don't want to miss out on being happy by being like this, but sometimes I just can't help it. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad you've never given up on me. It means a lot. It means everything to me. Didn't give up on me either. You've been there whenever I really needed it. It's who you are and I accept that. You smiled in understanding. Cove, that is very who you have been this whole entire game. I'm gonna go here. His eyes glossed over a little as he squeezed you closer to him and smiled, his heart rate finally relaxing to a normal rhythm. Good night, French fires. Good night. He leaned forward and kissed you tenderly, his hands gently moving to cradle the back of your head. You were still smiling as you snuggled into him, getting as close as you could. Cocooned in his warmth, easily grew comfortable next to him, feeling him ease into you as well. Before long, your eyes were growing heavy, and you drifted off in a restful sleep side by side. The next morning, you woke softly from a comfortable dream. With a small stretch, you opened your eyes fully to the sun shining in through the window. Shuffling onto your side, you noticed Cove still beside you in the bed, sleeping soundly. His arms continued to be draped around you loosely as he snoozed. He must have fallen asleep that way. You smiled, remembering the prior night. It had been nice to spend the night together, getting to be with him in a whole different way. You could definitely get used to it. Watched him sleep, you stroked his cheek, you ran a hand through his hair, you kissed his forehead softly. I shall stroke his cheek ever so gently. His skin was soft to the touch as you brushed your fingers over the side of his face. He stirred a little in response, a small, sleepy smile curving his lips. Then a loud noise suddenly startled you, and you snapped towards the source of the sound. Oh no! Mr. Holden's in the room and it's music! The door opening abruptly, and in the frame stood Mr. Holden, smiling brightly. He hadn't seemed to have noticed you straight away. Get your butt out of bed, brah. Mom's here. Oh. He's just gonna back out slowly and shut the door I'm gonna go talk to Kira. All of a sudden, the two of you made eye contact and he froze where he stood, the smile slowly slipping from his face. Well, that's not what I usually walk into, bruh. I clearly should have knocked this morning. Your mouth wordlessly fell open. Oh shit! Of course, Cove would get away with sneaking into my room, and I'm the one who gets caught. I'm not going to say that, because he probably might not know that. Good morning, Mr. Holden! I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with, good morning, Mr. Holden. He's still shouting, good morning. Blinked his eyes tiredly and mumbled something incoherent before turning towards the door. Both you and Mr. Holden stared at him for a few moments, neither knowing what to say or do. Cove, who continued looking at his dad dozily, was obviously having a hard time trying to process the situation. Then his eyes widened.
Dad!
Cove scrambled on the bed in an attempt to get to his feet, pushing the covers back off the both of you. Forgetting there was an overhang ceiling above him, he shot upwards and hit his head on the wood.
Ow!
This is great. Oh man, it's so entertaining. He flopped back down on his pillow, pressing a hand to his head and groaning loudly. You laughed, you gasped. Cove, you could only stare in shock. I would probably be like, hey, you doing alright there? He reached out towards him instinctively. Cove, brah, you alright over there? Mr. Holden stepped further into the room, his eyebrows furrowed and concerned, and he bent down towards his son.
Yes, please just go.
Okay, I'll leave, brah. Cliff held his hands in front of him in a calming gesture, even though Cove couldn't see it. He turned to make his exit, but stopped abruptly in the doorway, obviously deciding he had something more to say. Oh no! This is such an awkward comment. Wow, so he's really young then. Because if I've known Cove for a decade and Mr. Holden was 18 when he found out that he was going to have Cove, he's like super young. I know we talked about this before, bruh, but I feel like now's one of those times to mention that I was barely older than you when I found out that I was going to be a daddy. So, just, is there anything you need to say, bruh, or ask about? This is so awkward.
We're not having kids.
I know. I was only saying, at that age, things can move fast, bruh. He let out a heavy sigh, running a hand over his face before stopping himself and saying calmly, You know what, it's fine. We'll chat about it later, bruh. Kira's waiting. He's gonna go out there. Yeah, so, you need to close your eyes. I got a surprise! With that, he stepped back out of the room, giving the two of you only one last look before pulling the door shut behind him. Cove rubbed at his face before dropping his head into his hands and mumbling between his fingers. Oh my god. He patted him on the leg. Well, that was fun. That was so awkward. It's between that was so awkward and well, that was fun. It was hella awkward. Tell me about it. With a heavy sigh, Cove forced himself to sit up again. He frowned hard, staring over at the closed door. Sorry. I guess we can't just hide in here now. He gave you a sidelong glance, and despite his displeasure at the situation, a small smile quirked his lips. Too bad. It's been really nice. I wish we could stay in here all day. You found yourself smiling along with him. The two of you took a few minutes to get up properly and get yourself as ready as possible before heading out to see Kira. Kira was waiting patiently in the living room. She was in high spirits, with her eyes set on the hallway. Her amused smile only widened when you and Cove froze. It didn't take long for the realization to sink in that the scene must have been loud enough for her to hear, even from there. Cove tried to look unimpressed, eyes narrowing, over Kira's smug delight. Though his face was already turning red and his mom hadn't even said anything yet. Squared his shoulders, lifted his head, and strode forward. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby. And hello, you too, French fires. Her tone cracked in her greeting, and then she just gave a laugh, unable to keep any of it in. Cove frowned at that, and his eyebrows furrowed. Sorry for the interruption. I didn't know we had any guests. His frown wobbled, and he became even more embarrassed by this moment. He couldn't muster up any words to defend himself. Well, it's not like anyone is surprised. I'm sorry. Hi. You don't have to laugh. Just be like, hi. Hey. As Kira slowly composed herself again, you raised a hand to wave. All you could do was really smile. Cove was still unable to say anything. Other than the teeth biting into the inside of his cheek, he stood there, frozen. Kira studied you both for a moment. It's okay. My not-so-little mister is spreading his wings. I can't complain about that. She lightly tapped the tip of his nose. That got a tiny smile from Cove. Despite being much taller than Kira at this point, he still seemed like a little kid in front of her. You released the air you were holding in your lungs, and then Kira's gaze locked on you. No, we were just going over to see Pam and Noelle. Are you two coming? Sure, I should definitely go back there. Cove chuckled at your phrasing. He stretched his arms for a moment and yawned, trying to physically shake off what happened. Yeah, that sounds good. Great, brah. Let's do it. It was then that you noticed Mr. Holden standing on the other side of the room. You figured he must have been trying to create some space for everyone during the last conversation. You could tell he felt a bit awkward, but he tried smiling reassuringly as he scratched the back of his neck. His attention went to Cove. Brah, you want to get changed first? Cove looked down at his pajamas for a moment and he shook his head. No, we don't have to wait for that. Sure, brah? It's only a trip across the street. I'm alright. Besides, French Fryers is going in pajamas too. Fair point, brah. Cove then leaned in closer to you and he grumbled quietly. And your moms are gonna figure out what happened anyway, so... Yeah. Away we go! With that decided, the four of you headed out across the street to your house. It felt strange waiting there while Mr. Holden knocked on the door. Hi there! Oh no! Oh no! It's glasses, Mom! Any of my glasses, Mom! Mom answered the door, and her expression brightened even more seeing Kira there. She moved to pull Kira into a hug when her gaze fell on you. French fires? Hi, Mom! How? When did you get out there, and why are you still in your pajamas? Mom's eyebrows raised as she gave you a deep, examining stare. Meanwhile, you and Cove shared a slow side glance with each other. Before you could answer, more heads popped into view around the doorway. Ma, Liz, and Lee were all chuckling. To be honest, I always assumed Cove had been the one sneaking around. Her eyes sparkled with amusement, and you had to look away. You noticed Cove's face was burning red again. It was a solid theory, Lonnie. Most likely they've both been breaking and entering. I wouldn't put it past my baby. He takes after his parents. You're right. I can't believe my French fryers has been getting up to all that mischief, too. Mortified, Cove looked like he wanted to disappear while the adults chuckled and discussed what you and him may or may not have done. Fortunately, they left the conversation there. Enough of standing around out there. Come on in. Mom moved aside to usher the group in, and guiding them to the living room. Before anyone could get settled in, Mom spoke up. You're all welcome to stay for breakfast. We still have some great spices and stuff from the farmer's market. Yes, we'd be thrilled to host you. There were eager nods from Mr. Holden and Kira, but Cove looked around the room, filled with familiar faces, before speaking up. Maybe instead of staying here, why don't we go to the beach? Scenic picnic, eh, bruh? Mr. Holden crossed his arms and contemplated that idea happily. Excited, Kira clapped her hands together. Oh, we could make a day out of it. Might as well enjoy the ocean while we can. That sounds lovely, Cove. Everyone else put in their own agreement with Cove's suggestion. Before long, both families dispersed, getting ready. Sandwiches had to be made. Water, sunscreen, towels, and more needed to be gathered and packed. Plus, you and Cove both took some time to get dressed for the day. An hour later, both your family and Cove's were walking down the old path to the beach. The morning was already turning into a bright and beautiful day. You honestly couldn't ask for better weather for a beach trip. The moment you laid your eyes on the full view of the ocean, you stopped and you stood there mesmerized. It didn't matter that you grew up there, the sight always filled you with wonder. Hey, French fries.
I was thinking about calling Terry and Miranda, see if they can come too. Everyone else is pretty much already here, so would your family mind?
Wow, you had a good idea. He chuckled, his mouth pulled into a bent smile.
It had to happen sometime, even with Clifford's surprise Holden raising me.
That had you laughing. You were already eager for your friends to join you there. Hey, Mom! Ma! They both stopped what they were doing and turned towards you. Immediately, you darted over to them. I have a question. Would it be alright if Terry and Miranda came by? Well, I don't see why not. Ma looked at Mom to see what she thought, and she nodded in agreement. Mom then shot a glance over at Mr. Holden and Kira, knowing that they had likely heard everything. Cliff, Kira, what do you think? Oh, the more the merrier. Horse brah, welcome with me. Thanks. Delighted, you nod and turned on your heels. Cove was still several feet away talking to Lee and Liz about the same topic. With a beaming smile, you gave him a thumbs up, and the two of them must have also approved, as Cove quickly got his phone out and started making calls. At that, you turned your attention to helping with the picnic setup. Unexpectedly, your phone started ringing. You dug it out, curious to see the caller ID. Feeling your heart jump with excitement, you answered. It was Derek. Hey, this is a surprise. I thought you disappeared.
Nope, I'm not, man. And I hope it's at least a good surprise.
A very good one. You chuckled at that, and your smile widened.
So, what's up, man?
The voice that came through was much deeper than it had been when you first met, but it still had the exact same amount of enthusiasm as a kid.
Have you been enjoying these crazy summer days, man?
Yeah, I have. It's been amazing. There's been ups and downs. It's been memorable, to say the least. I would have enjoyed them more if you'd been there. Let's hang out with Cove! I'm gonna go with ups and downs. Ups and downs.
Yeah, that happens, man. Right side, at least, it's almost over then.
What about you? How's your summer been? You were beyond curious to know what Derek had been up to since the last time you spoke. He chuckled, noticing your invested tone.
Honestly, I've just been slammed with stuff lately. College applications and scholarship inquiries. What else is new, man?
I bet you're even more toned than the last time I saw you. Your only real struggle will be choosing which place to go. Then they'll all be desperate to have you. I wish you nothing but good luck. I'm gonna go. I wish you nothing but good luck.
I'm gonna need it, man.
I kind of doubt that. He chuckled. You could hear his small smile while he spoke.
Yeah, man?
Yeah, of course. You worked really hard.
Well, that's true, man. Thanks.
His cheerful tone elicited a chuckle out of you. What about your family? Are your brothers being good?
My little brothers are punks, man. But I guess they're doing all right.
You both laughed at that. It was easy to imagine the grin on his face.
Mom and Dad are fine, man.
That's great. My moms are too. Turning your attention back to your surroundings, you smiled warmly at your family buzzing around. Towels were laid out, and chairs and umbrellas were being set up. Actually,
What's up, man?
I met with my moms right now. Liz and Lee are here visiting too.
Oh, that's fun. But if that's a deal, I'll get back to you, man.
Are you sure? I don't mind.
Uh-huh, I'm sure. Not about to lose your number, man.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, French fries. Have a heck of a day, man.
Hanging up, the conversation left you energized and in good spirits. It was exactly what you needed to make this day even better. You hurried over to your mom's and helped with the rest of the food out. In moments, you noticed Cove at your side. So what's the verdict on those invitations?
They're gonna come.
Yay! Excited, you raised your free hand for a high five. Cove laughed and slapped your hand.
They'll meet us here later today, so it shouldn't be too long.
I can wait. While on the topic of inviting people to join, you realized there was someone else you could call as well. You had gotten Baxter's number earlier that summer. Oh, that's gonna shit right in Cove's cornflakes. I'm gonna do it. Everyone else was going to be there. You didn't want him to be left out. You sent him a text and hoped he'd show. After that, you made sure to mention what you'd done. No one seemed to mind. Once the setup was done, everyone got comfortable and dug into their food. You couldn't remember the last time breakfast tasted this good, but you attributed it to the gorgeous ocean view and soothing sea breeze. Morning swiftly gave way to afternoon, and a very recognizable face came walking down the shore. It was Baxter. He pleasantly approached with a wave. Hello there. I appreciate the invite to the party. Of course. You're welcome with us. We bought plenty of towels and food and sunscreen. Yeah, bro. You're one of the neighbors. Kick back and relax with us. Thank you. Baxter's gaze moved over to you and Cove, and he smiled. Hey, baby doll, Cove. Long time no see. Hi. I don't regret that one bit. Making him call me baby doll. It's funny every time. You waved from where you were leisurely sat, and Cove nodded. I'm glad you decided to come. So am I. It was then that Baxter noticed the faces he didn't immediately recognize from around the neighborhood. He turned up his charm even more for introductions. Excuse me, I'm Baxter Ward. Sorry we haven't met before. Well, we're not typically from around this area. Just visiting. I'm Cove's mom. A few giggles escaped Lee as she watched Baxter carefully. When his attention turned to her, she held out her hand. Hi, I'm Lee. French fries and Liz's cousin. Baxter shook it and then took a step back, and Lee's smile grew. I'll remember that. Nice to meet you both. After that, Baxter spent some time getting better acquainted with everyone, and Terry and Miranda arrived excitedly. The conversation shifted to what you all would do next.
In that case,
We could play a few rounds of volleyball. There's plenty of us now.
is that alright?
Could I play? Of course. Miranda brightened, delighted with this plan. Ma looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I'd have to change, but it'd be fun to watch. I could be the ref, brah. My eyes won't miss a thing.
I'm in.
Excellent. We almost had enough for 2 teams. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan. Ooh, I have some craft supplies. We could make jewelry. We could even use stuff we find around the beach to accentuate. What, really? I want to make a necklace. I'd be interested in trying my hand at that, too. Prop to crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join too, please. I am not good at volleyball, therefore I shall make jewelry. That's what I'm gonna do. Already you were imagining various designs you could make depending on what Lee let you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. Kira got up from the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head. I'm up for a few rounds. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split into two. Okay, let me pop back to the house and get my supplies. Anything we can do while you're gone? You can start clearing out the towels for us to work at, and if you want, look around for some good stuff to use. Roger that! While Lee ran back to the house, the group did just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on one of the towels and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held up 2 necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you want to make. I have for everyone a choice of either a chain or a thread rope. How do I pick? All I know is I want to put some sea glass chunks on it. Well, that's a charming idea. His gaze went back and forth between Lee's 2 necklace base options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it. Well, I can't decide anything for mine. No rush. I'll leave the strands here and you can decorate it however you want later. I suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. Fate can decide. Well, I think I'll keep it classic and only worry about finding a decent shell. I'm planning on doing shells too. I want to find some sea glass. I'm going to hunt for shells. I'm going to look for driftwood. Yes, I'm just going to grab a giant log. Great minds, think of the same. We can look together. Happy with that suggestion, you nodded. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work on their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached in loops that were then slid onto their necklace base. Terry was immensely proud of herself with what she had done. Hers was simple, but gorgeous because of the striking piece of sea glass she painstakingly searched for and found. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his word and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had a good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, it seemed. Mom decided on medium-sized, purple ring-top shells as the centerpiece of hers, and Lee went with a few small Simnia shells. They both put their necklaces on soon after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had sea glass. Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts could be heard coming from the court. On top of that, y'all would hold up each newly made piece in the air, and the players would take a breather to applaud the creation. You really enjoyed searching the beach, raiding supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only one that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally, someone would head back to the houses and use the bathroom, rest away from the sun for a while, or retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take part in, or another game to join. At one point, Mr. Holden even broke out his pack of cards. He roped the whole group into playing a few rounds of good old Go Fish. There was only one thing that could bring the beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before you realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you were taking a break. sitting on a towel with your legs stretched out past it and your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and smiled. Hey there, kiddo. How you doing? I'm doing great. Today's been amazing. They both sat down, squishing you between them. Ma leaned her head against yours, and Mom started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Mom looked at you wistfully. We're both really proud of you, French Fires. You grew up to be more than we ever could have hoped. Thank you, it's only thanks to you. Your eyes started tearing up. I'm not sure I deserve any of that glowing praise. I would say thank you. Your moms were touched, or you were touched by their words, and your voice came out in a whisper. Mom chuckled and lightly brushed a bit of your hair. That's nothing you need to thank us for. But still, I wouldn't be here without either of you. Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly in a side hug. Glancing at Mom, you saw how teary-eyed she'd become. She sniffled. You stayed there quietly and contentedly, watching the sun set with your parents for a while, until Mr. Holden called out to you. He was walking in your direction. We're talking and we're thinking we're gonna walk down to the shore, brah. Any of you wanna come? Automatically, you looked to your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled. That sounds good to me. Yes, that'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching. That's a yes across the board. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw out a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came with a light jog. Hey, don't leave us in the dust. Cliff kept going forward but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand so he could face you again. Don't worry, brah. We wouldn't leave without you. All right, we'll catch up. Ready to go? Uh-huh. Both of your moms held out a hand to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one, and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her in too. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smile and she didn't resist. Together as family, you followed behind the others hand in hand. Your feet squished into wet sand as the waves rolled over them, and you didn't have a single care in the world as more and more stars began to dot the sky. Once the sun had long been out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. The closing of the day and the ever-approaching end of summer seemed to intertwine. It caused a quiet, reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove in a hug before moving on to do the same to you. You chuckled, still overjoyed that you got to see them today. I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here. That's okay. But still, I wish we could help clear all this all up. Don't worry about it. Just thanks for coming today. It's cool having everyone here. Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a low 5. You pressed your fist into it, which made her laugh. Take care of yourself, buddies! After that, they walked away, waving to you and Cove as they went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. Wave too, bye, have a safe trip back. I'm happy I got to see them. I would probably tell them to have a safe trip. We will! Bye! Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood of your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with a hip. It left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend. French Fires? Hey, brah, you come here. Both of your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still so much to pack up and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into bags and bundling them up in towels. Once things were ready to go, everyone filled their arms with as much as they could carry. Absolutely no one wanted this to be a back and forth kind of task. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cool breeze carried you across the sand and onto the road. There was a sigh of relief from what felt like the group as a whole when they arrived back to the neighborhood. Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying on the ground. "Thank you so much for helping with that." "No, thank you for letting me join today. Y'all shared with me. Helping to carry it back was the least I could do." Ma nodded, and the others started collecting their things from his pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove. "It really was a pleasure getting to know you both this summer." His head tilted towards you and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. Shake it, wave goodbye, pat his shoulders, side hugged him, raised your hand. I'm going to shake his hand. And it's fine. It was tough with what you were carrying, but you were able to extend one of your hands a bit. Baxter chuckled and shook it. "I didn't think we'd end up as good friends." Well, we're not really good friends. "I really enjoyed meeting you. Good luck on your next summer semester." You didn't say anything. I will wish him good luck. "Why, thank you. Good luck with your plans this fall." "Thanks." Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous for a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. "I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. Would happily do it all over again." "Bye, Baxter." "Yeah, bye." Baxter nodded and walked a few steps towards his condo. He then stopped and waved. "Bye." Baxter sauntered away completely and disappeared inside the condo to return to his own things, his time with you and your family and friends ending. He paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, you looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kira or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face. "Seems like you're holding up some Holden things." "Oh, Mom." Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right. Some of it belonged to the neighbors. "Would you mind dropping it off for now?" Looking down again at everything you were carrying, you sighed. A teasing grin played at your lips. "The Holdens is a long walk from here." Cove snorted and laughed next to you, making you grin. Mom chuckled and shook her head. "You can hack it, and then you'll get to experience the joy of a job well done." You laughed happily and nodded. Mom smiled fondly. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you. "Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, French Fires." "Night." Caught up to Cove, and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kira and Mr. Holden busily unpacking already. Things were scattered on counters, and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. "Hey, brah." "It's nice to see you again already, French Fires." Her teasing tone brought a light smile to your face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. "I ended up with things of yours from the beach." "Oh, thanks for getting that for us, brah. You can put it here on the coffee table, next to my apples, and a cup, and whatever that other thing is. I think it's magazines. I don't really know, brah." Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what didn't belong to your family there. Cove put his own things down on the floor just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family's stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute resituate it all. You went over to where the others were too. Kira opened her arms wide, wanting to hug you. Yes, I shall hug you, Kira. Without any hesitation, you went to Kira and let her pull you into a hug. You squeezed her back just as tight. Her hug was filled with affection, and you hoped that she could feel how much you cared about her, too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. You're welcome. Today was amazing. Kira eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture. Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out any better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kira moved aside to let him say goodbye too, and he grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor, brah. And not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. You didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really, truly appreciate it, brah.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, French fries. So much, brah. At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. Really glad that you're my neighbor. You're good people, too. You hugged him. Goodbye, Mr. Holden. I mean, if we're doling out hugs, let's hug Cove's dad. You burst forward into Mr. Holden and wrapped your arms around him. Surprised, he went rigid immediately. But several moments later, he relaxed, began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug, and you squeezed him tighter. Thanks for moving in. As you let go, he sniffled, but when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at you, who he used to be. And the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend. Bye, French fries, bro. He smiled softly. Then Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house. Oh, don't worry about all that. I'll put stuff away in a few minutes. Right, I need to go do the same with my family. I figured. Cove walked you to the door and held it open, taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home. He went into the road. He leaned his body against the doorframe, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I mean. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit. He was trying to banish the pensive thoughts. I'll just say bye. Yeah, bye. It won't be long before you'll see me again. You offered him a small wave goodbye with one of your hands. Cove reached forward and gently cupped your face with one hand. His thumb trailed across your cheek for several heartbeats. Mesmerized by his blue eyes, you stepped forward, delighted to oblige the request he was silently asking. He met you halfway as you smiled into the kiss. It was soft with longing, and your chest ached knowing that there couldn't be anything more than this, at least for now. One of his hands grabbed into the door handle and firmly held it. He was stopping himself from coming with you. As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him, and you laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. Night, you blew him a kiss, you waved. I'm gonna go hug him. Like, goodbye! Here, I'm gonna come back and give you a hug. Put the remaining stuff from the beach down on the step and almost tripped, bolting across the road. The next thing you knew, you were diving into Cove's arms, wrapping your arms around his middle. The force of it all knocked you both loudly into the doorway. Neither of you cared. You both held each other tightly, and you could feel Cove resting his cheek on the top of your head. Night, French fires. He smelled like salt water and sunscreen and home. It was a while until either of you thought to separate. Slowly, you made the trek home and collected what you left on the step into your arms again. Things couldn't be dragged out any longer. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit, and she yawned loudly. I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow? Yes, honestly, it's too late for this. Please and thank you. Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about, but she sighed. I suppose we can make an exception for the usual rule. It has been a long day. Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. Good night. I hope you have the loveliest of dreams of you-know-who. Lee ended that sentiment with a wink and a hearty laugh. She let you go. Hope you have good dreams too. You hugged her back, shook your head, you blushed. I would probably blush. Lee's grin widened as you took the bait. Your face burned even more when you realized it. Stop that. You hissed it in a louder, hushed tone. The reaction seemed to only turn her giggle up. Don't worry, I'm not judging what you do in the privacy of your own mind. Lee! Sorry, I'm done. Here's to us, French fries. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever. Smirked at that one. Yeah, family forever. Thanks, Lee. You're really lucky. You nodded quietly. Yeah, I'm gonna say thanks. It's either yeah or thanks. I'm gonna go with thanks. I don't know what I'd do without you. I know. It'd be lonely. Lee stretched her arms high over her head and she yawned loudly, looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Nighty-night, I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. It's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded, and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, baby sister. Night, Liz. I love you too. Bye, older sister. Gave her a hug. I should hug her. All the hugs. You wrapped your arms around her back to hug her from behind. She laughed and patted your hands. Eventually, you let Liz go from your grasp. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. Aren't you heading up to bed too? Want to relax first? I want to get everything cleaned up first. I want to relax. Desperately, you needed some time to decompress and clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now that you would end up staring at the ceiling all night. Okay. Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug. All right, you do what you need to. I love you. When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Their actions basically handing you off to the other. You were laughing jovially. I love you so much. Love you too. Aww. They both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt good to be loved. Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Good night, sweetie. Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedrooms down the hall. You were about to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. And don't let the bed bugs bite. You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed, but you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It It was a good rest, and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning on going to bed, when something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large window spanning the length of the back wall. You stared at the hills behind your house. As if on cue, your phone came on, alerting you of a new notification. It was Cove.
Want to hang out on the hill tonight?
Something inside told you that this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You sent him back a quick message. Yeah. Aw, he sent me a little heart. That's so cute. You went over to the front door, and stepping over the threshold, gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the Poppy Hill. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hill behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. Then again, and maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow, Cove was intrinsically linked to this place. After all these years, it would be weird to scan the horizon and not find him there. As surreal as the shore without a sea. The distance between you growing shorter by the second. Hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet, Cove turned, and a grin spread over his face as he saw you. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of Poppy Hill, looking out over the ocean. Same as you'd done countless times since he'd first arrived, when you'd found him in this very same spot.
French fires.
He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place, and you looked at him expectantly.
There's something I've always kind of wondered about.
He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance.
What did you think about when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house.
He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond, before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear that he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you at that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing the sad look on your face. Cove replicated that frown for you now, looking grave at your reply.
Yeah, I guess that would have been kind of hard to miss.
Sighing a bit, you continued to reminisce about that first meeting. I also remember feeling bad about what was happening.
I remember that too.
He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at an end, even before he spoke again.
Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person. Was I annoying or mean or...
I wanted to get to know you. I didn't know what the feelings were at the time, but I thought you were cute. That's a lie. I thought you were special. I was just worried because you were so sad. I didn't know what to make of you. Yeah, I didn't know. Like, you were super sad, but, like, we're going to go there. Cove nodded, accepting your response. Cove's hand drifted to the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off. Shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. He gave a half smile, not meeting your eyes.
No matter what you were thinking, I doubt it was worse than what I had going on in my mind.
He raised an eyebrow at his vague words, wondering what was it he meant. Cove lifted up his head, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more.
I remember that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget it. I could picture the way you looked back
Then when I first saw you standing right here, I still know the expression on your face. You chose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled, self-derisively, interrupting his own monologue. It scared me at first. Figured I'd be alone out here until I had to face my dad again. And then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place. But in that moment, you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening, how it made me feel. Listen to me, you stayed with me. He sighed, then bit his lip as he gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. A little? Yeah, you were. I'm gonna go with a little. Your teasing eyes rolled over to Cove, who laughed in reply. He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that. Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird, according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense that everything in my life had a specific connection to me. Somehow, right? He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic. So at the time, it felt almost real. You weren't just anyone. Some other kid who happened to live in the neighborhood with your own whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me. You were there so that you could find me when I was lost. Though it turns out, you were there for that. You were just trying to find me because something had sent you specifically to do it. I just didn't expect it to be my dad. He knew more about what I needed than I thought. Chuckled, shaking his head as he shook off the thought. Kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when the night was over. Wake up and everything will be the same again. I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home with both of my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. If I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was too big for me to hold all at once. So, never thought I'd see you again. Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright. And I never, ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was a grown-up, the two of us would still be together. Glad I met you. It's hard to believe it's so long. Guess that makes me your dream come true. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. You had been joking, but Cove nodded in agreement. You are. You exactly are. But the smile faded from his face and his eyebrows drew together. It was the worst day of my life at the time. The day my family broke apart. Too heavy for me to even think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long. He held a hand over his heart, connecting with the pain he'd felt as a child, and he looked at you earnestly. That was never really true. Things have only gotten better with me and Dad and Mom. It was the change we all needed. His eyes were growing misty. Oh, when I remember that time now, not the point that my life was over. It was only in the moment that I met the woman I was going to be with. When I was crying to a stranger over what I thought I'd lost, I didn't have any idea that she would be the one thing in the world that I actually would be able to live without. I never want to lose you. You're so wonderful. Thank you for all of this. You couldn't reply to that. Well, if I got that monologue, I would probably say you're so wonderful. I'm going to go with that. Only for you, really. hugged him, gripped his shoulders, ruffled his hair. I should kiss him. He should have all the kisses in the world. He leaned into the kiss, his lips soft against yours. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned on the hill. Hey, French Fires. So grateful that you were there, even when I wanted to run away. You didn't even know what to say back to that. His heartfelt appreciation left you speechless. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above. Wonder how late it is. Guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. You could just use your phone. You could still text your dad. You could text your dad about what you're doing. I'm going to message my moms. My moms might care, but I don't feel like telling them. You wanted to make sure you messaged your moms about what was going on. You quietly nodded. I will nod. Mr. Holden was content giving Cove all the freedom he could. Are you going to lay in the grass now? Wow. How'd you know? You're predictable. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down on the ground and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time here. I shall lay with him as I have always laid on the hill of flowers. You took your spot next to him in the grass, brushing the blades of grass aside a bit with your hand. You were close enough that Cove could reach over and hook an arm around your side from his place on the ground. You smiled at him. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt just like the beginning of one of your nightly outings. But then you suddenly realized the sun was peeking over the horizon. Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone. Really was late. Neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn, however, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper, early riser. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself up on the back of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face. Want to go back home? I could carry you. You're too tired. No, I want to stay here. You couldn't resist a yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately and gripped you a little more. Okay. It's been a long day. We've done a lot of things, like, really a lot. It has to end sometime. I know, you're right. Since when were you okay with things ending? Does it really have to end? I'd probably be like, yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, too bad I'm on that one, huh? We can stay if you want to. Cove smiled brightly at you, as warm as the new rays of sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. You moved your face forward and gave Cove a small kiss, and he tilted his head against yours. Good night, good morning. You're my favorite neighbor. You're mine, too. The two of you remained together on that familiar poppy hill, where you first met until the world began to fade to a blur. You were falling asleep. A few more gentle words drifted into your consciousness. Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes. Instead of the walls of your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but a bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day welcomed you with a shining sun, a refreshing breeze, and the chirp of songbirds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling the imprint of the blades of grass leaving lines on your cheeks. French Fires. Hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cove Holden. Oh, it's not the mean guy? Not the mean old guy? He had made himself comfortable, laying on his stomach with jewelry and shoes taken off and a flower in his hand.
Morning.
Not really morning anymore. Cove laughed, tickled with the overall situation and simply being able to spend time like this.
Told you I'd see you tomorrow.
It's the exact same day, Cove. Yes, I need no other options. We were up until dawn. That doesn't make it a new day now just because we went to sleep later than normal.
Then we disagree, because to me, it's not really the next day until I've been to bed and woken up. But fine. I'll just have to make sure to see you tomorrow again. Probably the day after that, too. That way, there's no argument.
Cove turned his head up to the sky, his expression content.
Looks like it's going to be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it.
He trailed off, blinking slowly in the sunlight.
Someday, when we're even older than now, wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What will we feel when we look back at it? Will it be the same as what we're feeling right now? I can't see what the future is going to look like again, but I think that's alright.
You're way too sentimental. Pretty sure I'm gonna have forgotten about all of this. I think it'll mark another new start for me. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Cove turned back to you, nodding in full agreement. He eyed the hills sprawling out before you and down below, where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Your home, Cove's, lay down at the bottom, neatly filed among the other houses in the neighborhood.
Hey, French fries. I bet I can beat you in getting back to the road.
You laughed, amused by the wager that reminded you of so many moments in your youth.
As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. You can always come back and see the poppies and fireflies again, right?
Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. Right, I'd like that. It's really gonna be another nice day. You're amazing. Yeah, we better do that. We'll always be together in one way or another. I might be able to manage that. That sounds like me. Cove blinked slowly, his eyes still locked on you, but you didn't need to see his face to know that he adored you. If there had been any room for doubt, the tender way he spoke would have filled it.
You're really irreplaceable, huh?
Cove beamed at you. His expression was so unlike the one he'd worn when you first met him here, swaddled in sadness and uncertainty. Yet you couldn't help but glimpse the boy once more underneath his bright expression and mature features.
Come on.
He offered you a hand, and you accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, pulling you along too.
Our parents probably aren't going to come running after us this time. We've got to make our own call. And I say that we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hill is just one part of things. There's more out there for us than this time and this place alone. Let's enjoy it.
You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke into a run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made that choice for both of you. The end result was the same, the two of you dashing down the hill like children, with the nostalgic revelry that could only come as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There were more memories to make, after all. Life takes another step forward.